This is the edit of Kameron and Cody Harwell. I think I'm saying that last name correctly. But basically, I'm going to go through here and try to explain to you exactly what's happening, even though it's happening very quickly. Usually I'll start the recording process when I start importing the footage, but in this case, I actually didn't begin recording until kind of partway through organizing the footage. I mean, basically, when I say organizing, what I mean is I'm taking bits from every clip and putting them in places that go with what that clip represents. So, for instance, like anything that has to do with the bride, but has nothing to do with the groom, it will go in its own section. Anything that has to do with the ceremony will go in its ceremony section. And basically, the reason I do that is so that I can keep everything very organized. Because when you get to going through 200 plus clips, and you have audio as well, and all this different stuff, you can get very disorganized, and then it becomes much harder to edit, and it takes much longer than it should, because you're just constantly having to go back and forth and find things you're looking for. But when you organize it really well, you don't have that problem. So that's what I started doing that at a couple weddings after I started editing. As you can see right here, I'm doing some work. So it's not every once in a while you'll see me like jump to like a spreadsheet or the internet for something that has nothing to do with the wedding, just because I'm at work or something like that. I'm doing something at work. But right now we're going through and organizing some footage of Kameron getting ready, her with the dress, and just going through and finding the best shots. And when I say I take bits from every clip, what I mean by that is basically, it's kind of hard to see what's happening, but basically I'm finding the best shot. So every time I do a shot, I may have multiple takes in that particular shot, and then I'll find the best one or the best two of that shot, and I'll put them into the timeline to use later when I start actually editing, because I'm not actually doing any editing of the film yet. I'm literally just organizing footage, and a big part of editing a wedding, for me anyways, is organizing. Because once you have everything organized, then it's much easier to put it together. It happens much faster. I'm doing some college stuff here. Back to work. And I also, anytime I'm exporting a video, I will usually cut that out. So there's going to be times when you may see me jump from different things, and that's because I'm just exporting something that takes 10, 20, 30 minutes, hour, whatever. Depends on the length of whatever it is I'm exporting. So I just cut through all that. Now right here, I had a little pause, but as you can see, there's a lot of different little things. So I did this shot of Blackwater Cattle Company, just the sign. I probably took 3 different shots of it, but of those 3 different shots, I probably hit 20 different angles. You know what I'm saying? So there's lots of different little things, and there's a lot of things you're going to see, especially in the organizing process, that you will not see in the final film, because I actually get tons of extra stuff, because the way I see it is it's better to be prepared and have extra than to not have enough, So I always get tons of stuff, so you see lots of shots that don't actually get used, and then you'll see some of my stuff that I probably have to end up cutting out of this. But anyways, I'm going through and I'm editing footage of the cows right now, and you can kind of see that there's a difference on the left and the right there, and the left screen is showing basically the whole clip itself, and I'm taking bits of that clip and then throwing it in the timeline, and what you're seeing on the right is basically what I've taken from that. And sometimes you'll see the color change, so it looks kind of gray and kind of flat right now, and that's because I shoot in a very flat profile so that I can later go back and add a lot of color, and you'll get to see what I'm talking about at some point. And you're actually going to get to see here, and I'll say in a little bit, it'll probably be a little while, but you'll get to see this a couple of different ideas I attempted that didn't actually end up panning out and didn't make it to the final film because they just didn't work out. So right now I'm editing the interviews. So when it comes to like the interviews and such, it's a little different, because obviously it's not like one clip, it's like a long interview, so I have to go through and edit out like answers that are irrelevant, or ums and stuff like that. Stuff like that doesn't have a, like I sound right now when I'm talking, when I'm going like. So I cut out all that stuff, and I find like the best answers that the person give. In this case, obviously it's Cody and Kameron, and then Kameron wanted me to interview her parents and Cody's parents, so that we had something, for them to give like a piece of marriage advice and to talk about them. And I thought it was really cool because it turned out really well to have that in there, and I'm probably going to do that in the future. But anyways, we're back to organizing footage, and there's the thing where I got the guys to pretend to push Cody into the pond, and now we're getting close to the ceremony footage. At the ceremony now. We're just going through, and as you can see, I'm throwing little things onto the timeline, and just putting them into a section that I call ceremony. And of course, the next thing from there would be stuff of just Cody and Kameron, and I put that in the tab called B and G. What that means is bride and groom. So anything that has the bride and groom together, but is not like the ceremony or the reception. It's just like anything with them two together that's unrelated to those other things. That goes in their own section as well. In this case, I'm going through. Actually, so what I'm doing right now is there's this, my signature shot that I do in everybody's wedding pretty much is this shot of where it's called a match cut, where basically I walk down the aisle and it's empty, and then I cut to the shot during the ceremony. And so what you saw a few seconds ago was me actually just testing out that shot to see how it was going to look, and it looked good. So I just like to do that just to make sure, hey, everything looks good here, Now we're getting into that right after the ceremony. So Kameron and Cody just got married, and then we're getting all the different shots with the bride and the groom. And I believe I'm making the teaser at the moment. Yes. Yeah. So right now I'm actually editing. No, I'm not. Am I doing that? No, I'm not. Sorry. Back to organizing footage, but I think I was getting my idea for the teaser right there. I kind of saw it and I was like, oh, this would be pretty cool. So I'm going to go back to that in a little bit. We're getting close to being done organizing, and as you can see, we're about 7 minutes into this making of video, and this is sped up 5,000%. So I mean, I don't know what the math on that would be, but it's a lot of time just spent in organizing. But we're getting close to the end. As you can see, there was a shot of Kameron and Cody doing the end with the sparklers. Going back now, and I'm doing the matching up audio. So I'm matching up the audio with Mason, and I can't remember the bridesmaid's name, but now I'm matching up audio of the ceremony. And what I mean by matching up audio is, so you have basically you have the camera's audio, and then you have the audio that you record separately. So I have a audio recorder, and what it does is it records it to that audio recorder, and then I come back in later and I find a spot that the audio from the camera matches up with the audio from my recorder, and I link them together so that then the audio from my recorder matches the lips from the camera, right? If I didn't do that, then the audio would be like those old Chinese movies where people are like ching-cha-cha, and it doesn't really make any sense. So that's what I'm doing there. Now right now looks like there was a little break in the action, and back. So okay, so right now I'm actually going through and I am looking for music. Believe it or not, this is also a big part of the process. I don't know how much time I actually spent on this process either, but it was a couple hours. And literally what I'm doing right now is I'm putting songs in 3 different categories: pre-ceremony, ceremony, and post-ceremony. Now, just because I put them in those categories doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to get used in those categories. It could be that I like the ceremony song at the beginning, but I put them in that way because the way I listen to them makes me think that, oh, this would go best here. So it gives me a way of organizing. I have a lot of songs already on my computer because I have a music licensing that I paid for, and so I have a lot of music. And then I'll go online and I'll actually go back to my music licensing website and I'll download even more music. And right now you saw me cut to 2 different weddings, and the reason for that was I was actually trying to make sure that I did not even import some songs that would have been used in a previous wedding, because I don't like to use old stuff in new weddings. So that's why I jumped back to those 2 old weddings. And yeah, I'm just going through, listening to music, seeing. So the way I edit is I organize, I find the songs, and then I edit. I do not do it in any other way, because for me, the song gives me this like creative flow that allows me to put it together. I don't know how to make that make any more sense than what it sounds right there, but basically I find the song and I really will just like know, okay, that's the song, and then I'll put it in the timeline. I'll begin the edit process. It's not completely based on the song, of course, but the song gives me this like rhythm almost to be able to, get into the mindset of the wedding, I guess. And so right now I'm going through on my website, or not on my website, on the Artlist, which is the licensing website that I have, music licensing website I have. And I'm going through tons and tons of songs. I probably went through over 100 different songs, looking for the right songs for their wedding video. And you know, the ones you'll see on the right there, there's a yellow little box. I'm clicking that box, basically saying that's the ones I want to get. And yeah, I'm just finding ones, listening to the beats, making sure I don't listen to the whole song. Obviously, if I did that, I would have been there for 2 weeks. But I just listen to little bits of it and know, okay, hey, this looks good, this sounds good, this is gonna work, and you just keep going from there. So we're getting close to the halfway point, and I actually had to re-download or repay for that licensing software because I hadn't updated my subscription because it ended. But wait, so I'm going through and I am picking out the song now, trying to find the right one. And yeah, that's pretty much what's going on right now. I'm looking for the beginning of the beginning of the video. I always, well, not always, but I prefer to have it to be a slow start with like some heavy beats. To me, that has a much more cinematic feel, and it's much more impactful, in my opinion. And I think in this wedding, I really hit that on the nail because I had Cody's letter reading at the beginning with the sunrise and the drone shots, and then the cow, and you know, it just kind of all really had this really calm, almost a calm sunrise, you know, and then it goes straight into, you know, to the action. But it's like there's a little break here. I did go through because like the reason there's breaks sometimes is I could have been, you know, somebody could have called, or I had to go outside. You know, I'm at work most of the time when I'm doing this, or it's after work, one of the two, and I may have had to step away from the computer to, you know, handle something. So that's why there's some breaks sometimes. But I cut most of those out. Right now I'm looking for the opener. I'm trying to kind of find out how to start the video, and this is probably one of the hardest parts because you're trying to get the thing going. It's almost like, you know, you got a motor that's not running and you're trying to get the thing, figure out the issue to get it started, and then once you get it started, you can kind of go from there. That's kind of what I'm doing here. I'm trying to just get the beginning going, and that's literally what I'm doing. So I'm just kind of throwing out ideas, and I'm taking bits and pieces of the video and trying to edit them with the music, and on top of that, adding in, you know, dialogue from, in this case, Cody, who started us off here. Now, at first, I did not use the letter. At first, I was looking at the interviews, and then I said, you know what, I liked how Cody kind of, you know, read that letter, and you know, it was pretty emotional. So I felt like that would be a very good way to start this video. So that's how we started it, and of course, I threw the signature shot in there at the beginning because that's how I roll. And I had a really cool shot of the cow. I think that Mike would really like that shot of the cows, and I have a lot of other shots of the cows too. I didn't put in there, but I did put those two. Mike Coggins is Cameron's dad. If anybody watching this is not sure what I'm talking about, but anyway, so yeah, I'm going through and I'm looking at some audio bits from Kameron letter reading, and what I did in this particular wedding is I started out with Cody's letter, then went to Cameron's letter reading because both of them got I wouldn't say very emotional, but both of them got emotional about it, and that's very understandable. And I felt like that would be a good way to start it. And then I kind of went into, you know, them talking about each other, and then of course the parents talking about them, and then into the parents giving the marriage advice. And I really like that idea that Cameron gave me of filming the parents, and that's something I'll take into the future when I do future weddings. This is probably just another break here where, you know, who knows? I don't know what happened. Something probably happened at work, and I had to run out of here and go take care of business, and then I'll be back in a second. Like I said, I try to cut. Yeah, okay. And what's happening when I'm looking at the interviews and such is that I'm trying to first find the best, you know, bit that you know, the best answer to a certain question, because not every answer is going to be as meaningful or as impactful, and that's just because, you know, it's just people answering questions. But some of the answers and some of the questions kind of are much more likely to be impactful, like, you know, who said not who said I love you first, but, you know, how'd you know he was the one, or how'd you know she was the one? That's typically a pretty good answer. And the letter readings are always pretty emotional, and so I like those a lot. And then I'll find, you know, the best answer given or the best piece of dialogue that one of, you know, them or the parents said, and I'll go and I'll clean it up. Once I know that that's what's going in there, I'll go in there and I'll adjust the audio levels. I'll take out the ums, the likes, and all that kind of stuff, and just leave the core of what's good and the meat of the whole thing. And what people do, and you may not know this, is that you kind of cover up the imperfections in the interviews by putting on top of that B-roll music. So you can kind of hide where you're making cuts in the interview. So I can have a person that says like and 1,000 times, and I can cut all of that out, overlay some B-roll, and you never hear any of that, and it sounds like this person is like a professional public speaker. In this case, I'm going back and I'm looking at a different wedding as a reference. I do that quite often because you do get inspiration from prior ideas. This is me doing some farm stuff because that's just how this goes, and this is me watching TikTok because who knows. And yeah, so we're still kind of probably like the first minute or so in. It's going really well right now. So kind of when I edit a wedding, I have ups and downs, I would say. Maybe even call it like writer's block, where there's like periods where I really have like a good creative flow and I'm really getting after it and it's all going really well. And and then it gets to a point where you kind of hit a block, like a stopping point, and your mind kind of isn't thinking, isn't firing as fast, and I have to kind of take a step away. This is probably one of those times where I kind of stepped off. But we're at a point where I believe Cody is talking about Kameron, and then I had this really cool shot of the rings. So I had never done this where I went above the rings, and then I kind of had the camera spin in a circle, and I slowed it down and it looked really cool. And I can thank Captured by Colson. I can't even think of what her name is. For setting the rings up like that, because it turned out really cool. So, but yeah, so right now we are moving into them talking about Kameron, Cameron's parents, Penny and Mike, talking about their daughter, and then they give a piece of marriage advice. And a lot of times when I'm editing, I like to make if one person is talking about another person, whoever's being talked about, right, or whatever's being talked about, I really want to make sure that's what you see, right? Because if Cody's talking about Kameron and you see shots of Cody or a flower or something, like kind of like, well, what's the it doesn't really make sense. So I kind of always try to stick to whoever's talking about who is who I'm going to be putting up on the screen, if that makes sense. And what you'll notice is every time I start editing, I usually watch the whole thing through to whatever point I'm at. And the reason for that is so that I can get my mind fresh and back into it's like warming my mind up. Okay, this is where we're at, I believe, right now. So now I'm putting together the teaser. And the way that the teaser more so than the trailer kind of comes together is a lot of times I just have this like epiphany, this idea. Like I may hear a beat of the song, or I may see this shot and I go, oh, that's got to be the teaser. Because the teaser's pretty short, right? It's like 15-20 seconds, okay? So it's not going to be this long elaborate thing. It's a very short, but it needs to be very short and sweet. And so I always just kind of had this moment where I go, oh, that's the shot for the teaser. And so in this case, we went with this edit of like me going around in the circle and filming, Kameron by herself, Cody by himself, and them together, then them separately together, right? And I say separate, that doesn't make any sense. And then them away from the bridal party together. And I think it turned out really well. I thought it was really cool the way their teaser worked out. And most of the time the teaser isn't actually as elaborate as this one. This one just happened to work out to where it worked that way. And you will see, shots from the teaser and from the trailer that are in the final film. That's just because that's how that stuff goes, But basically right now I'm looking at, when you see me go on YouTube, I'm kind of trying to refresh my mind on certain techniques that I may have not, just haven't done in a long time. So I have to go back and find a video kind of explaining for me how to do a certain technique, and I come back and edit it, just like, anything when you're trying to learn something. Right now we're going through and I'm editing the Cody's parents. I can't think of their names right now, but I'm editing his parents' interviews and going through and I'm watching it again, right? And saying, okay, where I'm at now. The teaser is pretty much complete. I think I'm about to export it if I haven't already. Yep, I'm exporting that right now, so that's what I'm doing there. I probably watched it 1,000 times to make sure that everything was perfect before I did that. Now, right here, what you're seeing is, I'm trying to I'm still putting together the last bit of Cody's parents talking about Cody, but after that, I go straight into the pre-ceremony kind of transition almost. And this is a section that I texted Kameron and I told her, I said, hey, I had this idea and I didn't like it, Morgan didn't like it, so decided to go ahead and change it. And so originally what happened was there was this section. The section itself doesn't change. The only thing that changes is the shots on top of the main part of it. Because at first it was just these like still shots of each groomsman and each bridesmaids with the respective person, and it just was too choppy and like too kind of like not confusing, but just kind of like an eyesore. It just kind of like bothered your eyes having to deal with it. Now, right now, what I'm doing here is I'm actually going in and I'm doing a lot of audio work on the preacher's audio for the wedding ceremony, because it was very windy, and it was a not perfect day as far as the temperature wise. It wasn't hot at all. It was great, but it was very windy. And there was no way that I could cover the mic any better than what we had. We had it behind his coat jacket, or behind his tux, and that was our only way of being able to deter the wind from hitting the mic. But of course, when you have wind going blowing that fast in an open pasture like that, it's very difficult to completely stop it. But I was able to doctor the audio for the preacher pretty well for this section, and for the most part, you probably won't really notice it. Especially if you're not the one that had to put it together, so you're not how to reference it, right? You can't tell what it sounded like before, but if you could hear what it sounded like before I went and doctored it up, it sounded pretty rough. Not that he sounded bad, it's just that the audio was like getting hit, the mic was getting ruffled and from the wind and stuff. But anyways, this is another little section where going back doing some work. But I'm going back watching it through again. You're probably fixing to watch it through again. Okay, so now right now, what I'm doing when you see this happen right here is I'm rendering the timeline, and what that means is basically, well, I'll try to explain this, but basically it's just like almost exporting it, but without it removing it from the program, so that I can watch it and it's pretty smooth. And so I watched it through, kind of got to an area, and as you can see, every once in a while you'll see some shots that look really colorful and some shots that look very flat. And that's because I've color graded some shots for either because I was putting them in the teaser, the trailer, or because I just decided because I wanted to see what they look like. So that's why you kind of see the difference in the colors right now. But over time, you'll see to where everything has the same color grading scheme. Another pause here. So we're in the post-ceremony section where we're actually putting together what happens right after Cody and Kameron get married. And a lot of these little areas change as I edit through it. So at first it may be that it's looks a certain way, and then when you see the final edit, it looks different than what you thought it was going to look like if you watched this first. So we're putting that together, and in this particular wedding, I decided to, when I transitioned from the ceremony to then Cody and Kameron by themselves, right after they got married, I decided to go ahead and throw in the bridesmaid and the groom and the best man speeches. And I'm working on a transition right here, which I actually had to look up again how to do. Like I said, I had to refresh my memory. It's called a light leak transition. So basically, it's like the sun rays hitting the lens, but it's an artificial thing. So it looks like the sun hit it, and then it kind of transitions. But in reality, it's an effect that I put in there. So, but it's a good way of transitioning, especially when the sun is working with you, and in this case, it was. Now we're working on the audio for Mason. Now, the only issue I encountered here, which I wouldn't say was an issue, but was when Mason started his speech, we had the audio recording, right, because we had the mic on him, but my camera battery died right before he started, so I had to pull my camera off really fast and change the battery, and that's why, well, you won't ever notice this, but that's why the beginning of Mason's part is not actually on videos, because I didn't actually have the first, minute of his speech on video. Then I of course got it going and got it back up there. But it wasn't a big deal. It was easy to work around that problem. And then Cameron's maid of honor, I cannot think of her name. I got her entire thing on video because she went next. Now here, it's very hard to tell, but the section that I'm saying that I changed, I'm actually changing that currently. I went from putting the still shots of the bride and her bridesmaids and the groom and his groomsmen to having the bridal party walking down the aisle, and I slowed it down, and then of course I added the parents and the grandparents and all that. And there was a really cool section here that's in the trailer actually, where right now I'm just, like I said, referencing for ideas, but where it goes from the empty venue to the venue of them getting married to then just them two, and I thought that was one of the coolest things that I've ever done. And it was actually in the trailer. I don't think I did it in the actual full wedding because I did it in the trailer already, and it just didn't find a spot for it to fit. So right now we're getting closer to having the edit itself done. I would say the rough cut is almost complete at this point. It's not completely finished, but I'm basically just working on the end of it. And right now I'm working on the trailer, so I'm actually finishing up the trailer right here, and I'm going back into After Effects. After Effects is a program where you can create titles and things. A lot of different stuff you can do in After Effects, but I do all my titles in there. So when you see like the coming soon title or the couple's name, like in this case Kameron and Cody, that come from After Effects, and then I export it into Premiere, and then I edit that, of course. But anyways, so basically right now I'm just doing the trailer and finishing that up. And then, of course, everything in the trailer has to be color graded and done just the same, and all the audio has to be polished before it gets put anywhere, because I don't put out bad content. So, right now, I am still messing with the trailer, just, working out the kinks, messing with the beats. The biggest thing is just once you have, like, something complete, is kind of just going in and making minor adjustments to, like, the music, and how it flows with the edit. Right, so I have to make cuts at certain times, right, to match the audio. Now, you don't have to do that. Obviously, you can just slap it all together, and I'm sure it'll be fine. But I'm just a very particular person. I would say I'm OCD when it comes to making films, and I think that's why I enjoy watching the final product so much. But so we're going back to the film itself. I'm printing something. I'm not even sure what that was. Sending some, so this is good work. And the rough cut looks to me like it is complete at this point. And I'm just going through now. I'm doing a lot of color work. Going in, I'm adjusting exposure levels. As you can see, the color, you see the colors popping up there, the grays, and it pops into color. So I'm going in and I'm doing a lot of color work here, adjusting the exposure levels, putting in more light, removing light, adjusting minor little different things when it comes to color. And really the way that works is my process is basically I go through and I listen to the audio, and I look at the image, and then I just slowly pick it out and fix all the little things as I'm going, and eventually you end up with a final product. And sometimes I'll get to a point, I'll go, you know what, this isn't working out, and I'll have to go back and I'll have to change this section and adjust the transitions and different sort of things like that. But right now I'm going through and I am putting together the ceremony itself, because I give all of my couples, if you buy the middle or the top package, I give you the ceremony. So that's what I'm doing. I'm editing it, adjusting the audio levels on it, making sure that everything's good there. And that was me exporting the ceremony. Now I'm going through and I am actually putting together the interviews, because if you buy the full package, you get the interviews on a separate video as well. So Kameron and Cody got that as well. And in this case, of course, they had the parents, so I added in the parents as well, and this is me exporting that. So we're getting very close to being done. The final film is not completely done. This is me working on it, because everything else is actually done. So I am going through and literally just color grading and adjusting audio at this point. Everything as far as the core of the film is complete. But there's a lot of little things, little details, little audio adjustments, little, maybe even a little bit of one video is a little too long here and needs to be shortened here, but as far as the core of it is complete. And I'm just doing minor adjustments. And then you'll see right here at the very end, I play the whole thing through once I've exported it. Now, a lot of times I've exported it more than once. In this case, I was able to basically get it right the first time, and this is it. And that's pretty much the whole thing, guys, and I hope you enjoyed and maybe learned a little something about making wedding videos, and yep, that's the wrap.